What is going on, guys? Welcome back to Spotlight with Off the Top. Today, my guest is the owner of Northland Wrestling. That is Mr. Dan Jarris. How are you tonight?
I'm good, man. How you doing?
Oh, I'm enjoying this beautiful weather we have here in Ontario. So with that being said, I'm gonna get into some questions with you, and we'll get a little of that out of the way, and then we'll talk a little bit more in depth. What brought you to be the owner of Northland?
Oh, jeez. I always say it's a cool story. I was out of wrestling. I had basically started a family. I was out of wrestling for about 6 years, and then a couple of series events brought me back in. I did I helped Smash Wrestling run a show up here in North Bay, and they were running with a local guy named Adam Miller. So we did the show. Turns out it was Adam's last show. He decided he didn't want to promote anymore and left it to me to promote. And sometime shortly thereafter, Adam passed away. It was very unexpectedly. He passed away. And I basically told the Smash guys that we need to do a tribute show for him. And in a nutshell, I decided to do the tribute show on my own. It was supposed to be just a one-time thing. And through a series of events, I ended up owning a ring instead of renting a ring, and just put on a heck of a great show completely on my own, booked it, promoted it, and decided, maybe it was something I could keep going, and started Northland. Previously I'd booked for people, I'd worked for people, but I'd never actually done the whole show myself, and I thought I did a pretty good job. I had a lot of fun doing it, got a lot of good feedback on it, and here I am. Is it 7 years later?
That's crazy. I've been following Northland for 2 years now. I was able to attend my first event a couple of weeks ago here in my hometown. That was great. Like, all around, the talent that I spoke to was wonderful. They were polite, despite some of them being heeled and face. They were very interactive with everybody, no matter what. And that was very appreciative to my 4-year-old. She loved it. And she was very entertained. At first, she was like kind of but like she likes pro wrestling. This is indie wrestling, and she wasn't sure because she never got to meet people like that, right? So that was a very cool experience, and I love the talent you have around. They're very great people.
Yeah, I've tried to, bring in guys that are, obviously great in the ring, and just good people to deal with, and build like a stable crew. And I think I've done that. We've got a pretty good, strong core group of people, and then we always sort of, have a revolving door with other guys on the peripheral, right, just to kind of shake it up a little bit. But everyone in the locker room, they're all good people in their own way. They got their parts to play, and they might not get along with everybody, but if you take the time to know them, they're all good people to work with.
That sounds like us in the podcasting world. I mean, some of us get along sometimes, some of us don't, but we all come together for that common goal, right? So right. It's great. My next question is, what started you for the love of wrestling in beginning? Complete all of the beginning of it.
Well, this guy right here, a Dynamite Kid. Going back when I first saw him, I loved the guy. I thought he was great. He was ferocious. Being a small guy myself, obviously I gravitated towards someone. He was a small dude,
Right.
To me, when I was younger, I see him, he's all jacked up. Like when he was in his best shape, he was this jacked up guy, but he was still very, very short. And absolutely loved the guy, and I tried following him around. And I can't to this day remember the first time I ever saw him. But, he made his way to WWF at the time, and then he disappeared. Back then there's no internet, didn't know what happened to him. But at that point, I'd already started watching the other guys, the Bret Harts. And I love the series of matches between the Bulldogs and the Hart Foundation. And then, Dynamite disappeared, and I gravitated towards Bret. And I just kept watching it, just loved it from an early age. I actually used to watch it with my grandmother, too. She loved it, couldn't speak a word of English. It's a little old Italian lady, like, don't bota, yeah, it was just always something that was there, and it's just been with me my whole life.
Okay. So it's a very family-oriented thing for you, and that's what brings it all together for you?
Yeah, basically it's mostly my grandmother and myself, my brothers. Growing up, we all liked it. They all kind of fell out of it, as they got older. But I stuck with it, and school opened up in the area where I was at the time, down in Guelph, and I ended up walking through the doors looking to see if I could help in the office, because I wasn't thinking, 5'6", 130 pounds at the time that, you know, they would want me in the ring, but they saw $3,000 walk through the door is what I always say, right? So I signed up and turned out I was actually pretty good, and 27 years later, here I am still.
So 27 years, the landscape of professional wrestling, not even just the indie scene, has changed so much in that time.
Oh yeah.
I'm sure you've come across the paths of people you've seen. A lot of indie guys go up and make a name for themselves, or some go out and flounder completely.
Yeah, a lot of guys from Ontario, whether they're, WWE, like going back Edge and Christian, for example, I'm never ever going to pretend I was great buddies with them, but, they were sort of in the same circles that I was in.
Right.
Both guys stopped by the gym, I was in the ring with Christian, a couple of times just sparring, nothing too serious. I'm not going to say I was a sparring partner, but, I remember them being there, and in the group of guys, the Joey Legends that were there, and Bill Scullion, who was another guy that sort of hung around that group. He was one of the guys that, I would give credit to helping me in the ring. He was pretty good in the beginning. So those guys were around. Then you see Edge and you see Christian move up, and you think that's great. And then eventually Joey Legend started doing stuff for TNA, and then he got signed with WWE. You mentioned Flounder, he kind of floundered. They gave him that Just Joe gimmick, and it went nowhere.
Right.
And then other guys that kept coming up. What's his name there? Kazarni, or Sin, as he was known in the Indies. He was another guy that, I booked, and, going way back, used him. The Highlanders, other guys, even AEW now, Sean Spears, all running around in the same circles. Eric Young, that's a guy I used to book him.
I had a pleasure of working with Eric in 2020, just as I like to create stuff for them to sign. And I ended up working with a promotion of KNS in, I believe it's down in New York. And he was doing a signing with them. And I threw in a submission towards him, and he liked it. And he ended up sending me a bunch of stuff and cutting a promo on me and stuff like that. So it was a cool experience for me to sit down with him, be a video chat because of the pandemic.
Yeah, of course.
But it was cool. I followed him when he was Sanity and stuff like that. So it was a surreal experience.
Yeah, no, Eric's a good guy. Yeah, he ran when I was booking for, who was I booking for at the time? IWF, Impact Wrestling Federation. That's what it was called. He was he had the strap there. Yeah, we booked him to have the strap, and that was, I think I gave him his first promo, if I remember. He's like, "You think I can do it?" I said, just grab the microphone. You're a good talker. And he went out, cut a promo. It was pretty good, So it's good seeing those guys over the course of 20 plus years that I've been doing it, all move up there, and there's a few of them up there, and it's good to see them. Good to see them. But yeah, it's definitely changed. See a lot of changes. Everyone's getting smaller.
Yeah, it seems to be the way of wrestling now, which is not a bad thing, but it's just the wrong timing for someone like you who wanted to get into it that deep, right?
Yeah, like I said, I started 96, 97, and that's just when the cruiserweights and the luchadors were getting accepted. Over in WCW, you had Rey Mysterio tearing it up. In WWE, WWF at the time, the equivalent would be the Hardy Boys, these smaller people getting involved. So, that's when I got involved, but I was still pretty much in the early part, like the people who were still being accepted in a credible way, or the bigger
right.
The guys over 200 pounds. And, there was a group that I ended up working with, RWA, Renegade Wrestling Alliance, where they were all, they had a reputation of being backyarders. But, honestly, there was a lot of good guys for the Ontario scene that came out of that group. So, I give props to them. But they were the smaller guys for the most part. There was a couple guys that were over 200 pounds. Hey, what's his name? Robert Roode. He started out there.
Yeah, that's a Peterborough boy right there.
That's right. Yeah, and he used to come down. Rudy, we called him. He would come down with Shane. I always had trouble saying his name. It's Shane Sewell, Glamour Boy. He used to be Val Venus's tag partner in the Glamour Boys. He's another Peterborough guy, if I'm not mistaken, and he brought him down. And if I could be wrong, but I know it might have been his first match, maybe his second match. I know it was in an RWA ring. I believe, though, his second match might have even been with Edge versus Edge. We had Edge down. This is when the WWF he signed to a contract, but he was still allowed to take indie bookings. And that was in, I think that was in Hamilton. So I remember that, which, great start for this guy. Second, maybe third match, I'm not sure. But he's in there with, Edge, and that was great. Look at what he's done. That's another guy. There's another guy that, started out basically in the same kind of circles as me and made it somewhere. That was great. Made it to the top, if you think about it. NXT did fantastic there. TNA Impact did fantastic there.
I loved his beer money run in TNA.
Yeah, I did. Great. I love that too. I remember when I first saw them paired up, and at first, I was like, why do they take these guys that would be great singles guys, and put them in a tag team? They're going to waste them. And no, they just made something of that. I don't know if that was the intention, but they definitely ran with it and came up with something really, really cool. And I did enjoy that run a lot. So, anyways.
So,
but I started with small guys. And go ahead.
You had mentioned that you stepped away from professional wrestling in 2010 and returned in 2016. Was it just the family aspect, or was there a whole other reason?
2010, turning 40. At that point, I'm married. My first child's on the way, and it's like, well, I ain't getting anywhere. I'm not going to go anywhere. I'm not going to sign. I was already kind of like slowing down anyways with taking bookings, and I thought, all right, now is the time to stop playing and actually hunker down and raise a family, and it worked out. It was good for a little while, and I thought I was good, and just 6 years later, like I said, series events started kind of happening. But, once you think I'm out, they pull you back in, kind of thing, right?
You got that itch back.
Yeah. It's just like a bunch of random things that just started, giving me the itch. And then, I'm one to believe that sometimes the universe just lays things out in front of you, lays your path, and you got to walk it, And to me, it was clear as day that the path was being laid out. And I think now, with all the time that I put in wrestling before, I think the last 7 years, and in some way the last 2 years, probably even more so, have been the best years that I've had in wrestling, and probably, the reason why I got into it in the first place. Like if you talk about like what's your purpose, I think my purpose was the last 2 to 7 years in wrestling. The last 2, because I've become a trainer and opened up the Energy Y Pro Wrestling Academy and enjoy training the students I have. It's the most fulfilling thing I've done. And then obviously going back 7 years running Northland, it's been great. The crowds are great. We love it. Everyone loves it up here. Honestly,
I've seen some of the shows. I've seen the shows when you take them on the road. Like I've seen pictures and stuff. But when you're home, it seems like you guys can't find anywhere for anybody to sit.
Well, at last show, we had over 500 people. We had 504. We were doing good. And you look at it and you look at demographic, and you look at population, you look at all that, and you put a whole bunch of things into account. Well, it's up north. There's not much to do there, whatever. The fact is, there used to be wrestling running in North Bay prior to me starting Northland. And they might have come up about once or twice a year. 150 people in the crowd, maybe, on average. And then when I started promoting, I think I don't have the numbers in front of me here, but I've never done a show under 300. Never have. The very first show we had, I think it was 350 people. And then that was in a bigger venue. And then we decided to continue running and just test the waters and run a smaller venue. And we sold that venue out every time. That was about 265 people was our max in the place. At one point, we even sold out 5 weeks before the show. You know, so we sold that place out, outgrew it, went back to the bigger venue, and we're constantly, drawing 350, 375. Always had that benchmark to break 400. Finally broke 400. I think that was in 2018. I think we broke 400. Might have been 2019, actually. I think it was 2019 we broke 400. Pandemic hit. And, we were late to start back up here. The northern part of the province was slower to open up than down south. And one of the reasons for that is there's not a lot of good venues up here. Like you want to – I can't go to the Memorial Gardens and run a 4,000-seat venue. I mean, that's just obviously not feasible. So, we're stuck running in some of the smaller community centers or the high school gyms, some of the smaller arenas, banquet halls, whatever the case may be. So at that time, we're looking at 50%. You're allowed 50%. Well, it didn't make any sense, cost-wise. These places wanted outrageous amounts of money, and I wouldn't even be able to make my money back selling 50% of what the capacity was. So we waited a little bit, but when we finally opened up, we came back and did a show with 425 people. We broke our previous attendance record. To me, it showed that the people were just dying for Northland Wrestling to come back. Now, everywhere else was reporting about 50%, 75% of what they used to have. Right? And they didn't used to have anywhere near 400, 425 people to begin with. So we're doing really good up here. And then we did another show. There was concerns about weather, so a lot of people weren't buying the tickets. We sold 250 tickets in 2 days. Okay, ended up doing an outdoor show with just over 300 people, and most of that was sold within 2 weeks. So that's pretty freaking good. And then we hit 435, and then I said I want to hit 500, and I told everybody, I said I want to hit 500. Let's do it, and we did it. We did 504. We have a show now coming up. In just a month's time. It's summertime. There's lots of other things to do in the summertime, but we're currently sitting at 250 tickets sold with a month to go. So
speaking of that show, I'm planning to make the commute up there to watch that show. I fell in love with just the promotion and the people when you guys were here. And that's just not me blowing smoke. That's being honest and being a fan of what you guys have done.
I appreciate that. Yeah, it should be a good show.
I believe the one thing I learned too, and not many people might know this, but a lot of the events that you put on outside of North Bay, you do like community drives, like food banks and stuff, which I think is incredible.
Yeah. So we do that up here too. That's part of I believe that when you're in a position to help, you should help. It's also a little bit of a savvy business move, when you go into a new place, get the good graces of the community, and it's also you want to get people to show up because people don't know who you are, and it's harder to promote. I'm a very, very much boots on the ground promoter. I don't
very
just
guerrilla style, like you got to be out on the streets.
Style. And this is what I do. I talk all the time, right? Nonstop. It's kind of hard for me to do that in a place that's 4 hours away from where I live. I can't get down there. Like with the Durham one last year, we did 50 people at the same event.
Right.
Because we left it up to people down there to promote it. This year we had, I believe we settled on 175 was the number, but more importantly, raised over $1,500 for the food bank, which was great. But myself and two of the people in my crew went down a month prior to the event for 2 days and plastered the area with posters and talked everybody up and, try to raise awareness for it.
I believe it was last year. I think at that point, Butcher was on your crew, but he was just training because I'd run into him and I believe Josh at the lake here in town, and we got talking, and that's how I found out about Northland, and I started following.
Right. Okay.
And then when I heard you guys were coming up again, ironically, the day you were here was my daughter's 4th birthday. So it was
Oh,
great. It
okay.
was a great day out.
Oh, you should have said something. We'd have sung her
I,
happy birthday.
I did. Butcher had said, I had mentioned it. She mentioned it to Butcher, and then he said something, and I think the ring announcer just never said anything.
Ah,
I know
that's
the guy, ironically, is my middle son's baseball coach. So it is what it is.
okay. Great.
But no, I remember hearing about it from time over the Facebook. And then all of a sudden it was like everywhere in town. I'm like, yeah. And it kept reminding me, yeah, this is coming up and coming up. And it was just great. And I like seeing that style of stuff because you can promote on the internet all you want. But in towns like this, where it's, I want to say 60% of a community who's not maybe tech savvy, it's great to
Right.
see that.
Right. Yeah. We want to come back. We want to come back and see if we can put on like a full show. And, again, a little hard, a little scary for me anyways. Like I've got a good thing going on in North Bay. It works for us. Whenever we go, outside of North Bay, it's usually nice to have a safety net there. But if we want to grow, and this is a year where I said we were going to grow, and we're doing just that here in town and picking up a few more, smaller shows outside of town, or even some private events that we've got going on here. We are growing, but going back to places like, Durham is a good one. We do want to hit a few other places up north. But I'm a firm believer too in, sort of the de facto territory system. If there's already somebody running in a town and they've basically staked claim to the town, I'm not going to go there. That's their town. Let them do it. And even population wise, a little different when you're down in Toronto. You can have 14 companies running in Toronto. There's
Right.
3 million people down there. You know what I mean? Like, that's good. With Sudbury right now, just an hour and a half west of us, you got 3 to 4 groups trying to run out of Sudbury right now. They're all stepping over each other.
Yeah,
But,
it's not good for business at that point.
No, and here in North Bay, we got a population of 50,000. And, in my mind, there's only room enough for one successful company. Like, hey, you want to come in and you want to take my business, that's fine. But guess what? What's going to happen is you're not going to take all of it. You're going to be running. You might be able to get 150 people. I'll still have 150 people. I might even have more people. Who knows? Somebody tried last year, came in, did 75 people, if I'm not mistaken, because North Bay is Northland. People just really gravitate towards the vibe that the company has and the wrestlers that we have. And for some reason, they seem to like me. So, there is loyalty there. But, 50,000 people in the city, we finally get 500 people to come out. We finally got 1% of the population to show up. And that's a hard thing to do. And people just kind of see the success that someone else is having, whether it's me or anyone else, anywhere else. And they're like, oh, I want a piece of that pie. But what they don't realize is that pie is not just being given away. That pie, I had to go out to the grocery store and buy all the ingredients for it and bake it and trial and error. I burned a lot of pies before I got to the pie that everybody wants a piece of, right? You can't just walk in and jump on someone else's hard work. And I don't appreciate when people try and do that with me. And I'm not going to do that for anyone else. Sudbury, I could run Sudbury, but I've had a long-standing agreement not to run Sudbury with the promoter there. And other areas, like there's a few other communities in, hour and a half, 2 hours away from North Bay that I could run that would be, I think, good markets, but other people have hit them. And until they've basically pulled up their stakes, I'm not going to go there, But I think Durham is untapped. No one's touched Durham. It's still close to little other areas. I think on the same day we did our show, there was a show in Mount Forest later that evening, but I think the area is spread out enough that there is room there. There's room for a few promotions. And I'm talking about coming down maybe once, twice a year.
Right. Once you start getting outside of city limits, I think it's pretty obvious where you can and can't go for the most part, because not a lot of communities get opportunities to have any kind of wrestling, let alone just like a 2-man show. So it's always fun to take in, and sometimes it takes you back to a childhood,
Yeah, we definitely want to come back there. After the show, I received so many messages from people who were at the show. It was kind of overwhelming, you know, whether it was directly to my messenger or to the Northland messenger, to the Northland email. I received so many messages from people who are at the show, you know, asking about the little incident, which I'm sure you'll talk about at some
Yeah.
point. You
Well,
know,
that's a
and
nice
I
segue.
thought that was great.
We could segue into that. I know I was one of the people that reached out to you. That's
Yeah,
how
you
we
did.
started talking
I
today.
appreciate that.
You know, that's one of the moments where wrestling became reality there, right? Unfortunately, we all understand, well, most of us who follow wrestling or are wrestlers understand the risk and reward to it all. So my understanding of that match was that was also Dynamite Kid's nephew's first Ontario debut as well.
Correct. Correct. Yeah. Very, very
And
important for me to be able to do that because, like I said, huge Dynamite Kid fan. Been
right,
trying to bring him in for a year.
that is very cool in a sense. It comes kind of full circle for you in a way.
Yep. Yep.
I know before we get to your injury, because
Sure.
I do want to talk about that because I do want to understand the whole story.
Absolutely.
One of the boys also was injured as well on the other side of the ring. I believe
Yeah.
on the side
Mark.
I was sitting on. I
Yeah.
watched him
Mark.
smack his face off the ground. I don't know if he went out or.
Um, yeah, I don't believe. Well, you know, back it up. It's right at the end of the match. We're doing the thing. Hot tag is made, and on the one side of the ring, we've got one of the Vicious Circle guys. On the other side, outside of the ring, we have one of the other Vicious Circles. So I went up on my end to do a senton, a move I've done a million times over the last 27 years, and did my thing, which we'll get to. But we'll talk about Mark. On the other side, Mark went for top rope moonsault to the outside, and in a nutshell, fell a little short. So when he hit Carew, he didn't hit him high enough up on Carew's body,
Right.
and he basically did a face plant. Carew pretty much grabbing him around the legs. Well, Mark's a tall guy.
Yeah.
Uh,
I was
so
sitting on I was on the corner pole, I was the front row. I watched it all unfold,
right.
and it was short, but he tried all he could to save it, so he didn't smack.
Yeah, yeah.
He tried to make it as safe as possible. Unfortunately, you can't always be on perfect, right?
No. But yeah, no, he got away lucky. I mean, he pretty much did the reverse of what I did, you know. But like you said, he did land on basically on the side of his face. His hands fortunately hit the floor and I believe absorbed a lot of the impact, which
Yeah.
took it away from his face. In the process, he obviously bent his neck quite back. I don't believe he lost consciousness. But he definitely received a major concussion. And yeah, he was taken to the hospital right after that. On the other side of the ring, I'm doing my senton, which again, like I said, I've done a million times, and I'm not going to say what exactly happened because the jury's still out.
Right, right.
People have their opinions. But when I dove at the guy who was there, he suddenly wasn't there, and let's just put it that way.
Right.
And I ended up basically, if you do the math, I'm 5'6". I'm standing. My feet are 8 feet high. 5'6" from there, 13, 14, a little bit of a jump. So basically, my head comes from approximately 15 feet in the air and hits concrete. My shoulder took some of it. It's still pretty bruised up, but smashed the back of my head. Instantly got knocked out for about a minute, according to the videotape that I could see, and busted my head open. Ended up, getting taken to the hospital and 26 staples in the head. Low grade concussion. They didn't diagnose me with that because I was great. Like the doctor was surprised. I guess I didn't show signs of a concussion when they did the CAT scan, which is baffling. But I think it's late onset because I'm starting to feel it. A week later. It's not bad. Never once a headache, which is crazy. Just absolutely crazy when you think about it.
Right.
But yeah, knocked out for a minute, and yep, big pile of blood on the floor and 26 staples. But
So my recollection, because I didn't see the move, I seen you go up and I seen you go down. I just didn't see you get back up.
right,
The thud that was made, and I'm not trying to bring this back of any way, but the thud alone just told me something didn't happen right.
yeah,
Because that did not sound and anybody that's ever been in a ice rink knows that those floors are unforgiving. Like
yeah.
they're built to outlast pretty much anything.
Mm-hmm.
And so
There's no
imagine
give.
as he's explaining, he's jumping 15 feet in the air down and ain't gonna forgive you very much on that.
No.
And I remember my wife, myself, my daughter, and my son walked over, and I seen the blood, and I kind of just walked away with my daughter because I didn't want her memory to be.
100%. Yeah, you're right.
My son is like, oh, I got to see. Like he understands that injuries happen. My daughter doesn't. So, but like I said, I reached out because it was concerning. I wasn't looking out for the wrestler. I was looking out for the man. You were in my community, and I wanted to see whether I got an answer or not. I don't know, but I had to make sure that you were all good.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I appreciate it. Like I said, you weren't the only one. It was overwhelming, very overwhelming. I obviously, I didn't want to draw a lot of attention to it. I ended up making a post. I tried to respond to everybody that was messaging directly, and like I said, I got to the point where it was too much, so I had to just post an update. I didn't have any photos of Mark in the update, so it did come across as sort of mostly about me, although the headline was update on Mark and me. But I felt the need to just reach out and let everybody know because there was a lot of concern, and rightfully so because it was pretty scary. My son was there, and he was flipped right out. So
I remember seeing him. I don't know. I can't remember which one of your talent it was at the time, but I remember seeing him very visibly disturbed at that time, and naturally so.
Yeah.
It's not fun seeing dad get hurt or anybody. So I can understand, like, he was very well shaken, but I'm glad he was okay. You're okay.
Yeah,
Mark was okay.
I'm good. Adrenaline's a crazy thing though, because right after I got up, I remember lying there. We were supposed to do the poetry slam thing. It was part of the festival.
Yeah.
And I'm laying there on the floor, and I can hear them stacking the chairs. Right. And you got to think. My point of view is I remember doing the flip.
Right.
And I remember something not right. And then I'm lying there, and as my eyes are open, I have absolutely no sense that I got knocked out or what happened. I'm trying to listen for the reaction on Mark's moonsault on the other side of the ring, and I can't hear it. Then I'm trying to listen for the reaction of the finish of the match, and I can't hear it. And I have no clue that this is like a couple of minutes later now, right? And then I kind of looked over and I saw the blood, and right away I put two and two together. I said, okay, right? So I'm laying there. They won't let me get up, and I can hear them stacking the chairs. So I said, and I think it might have been the EMT. I'm not sure, the paramedic, whoever.
I'll tell you this. That's the fastest I've ever seen them get somewhere in this town. No word of a lie. No word of a lie.
And not just one, there was two, because there was another set for Mark, too.
Yeah, it was just crazy how fast.
Yeah.
I've never seen ambulances get there.
They were good. But so I'm hearing the chairs stacking, and I said, why are they stacking the chairs? We got the poetry slam to do. And they looked at me and said, you're not doing any poetry. I was like, not me, the wrestlers. And she must have thought I was knocked like for a loop because, I'm talking about poetry now, But that's in my mind. Why are we not doing that? The show's got to go on. So I get up and I got the EMTs following me around the arena as I'm handing out the envelopes and paying all the wrestlers before getting in the ambulance. That's just me, right?
That's the old school Booker mentality right there.
It's my job. I got to do it, So as soon as that was done, I got in the ambulance and then I was there. So, that was fun. That was fun counting the staples going into the back of the head. That was great.
You've been around 27 years in the business now.
Yeah.
Where are you originally from? North Bay, or are you from outside of North Bay?
I'm originally from Guelph.
Okay.
Originally from Guelph, Ontario. So not too far, I guess, really from Durham. I know it's just
it's only about an hour, if that.
Yeah, not too far. So I'm from there. Originally came up to North Bay to wrestle. in the area. Surprisingly, not actually in North Bay itself. We did, I think, Verner, Calendar,
I haven't
and
been up that way in years,
Miskin.
so I couldn't
Yeah.
tell you.
So we hit a few little areas, communities around North Bay.
Right.
And then one of the guys who was on the show was from North Bay. I became really, really good friends with him. And then just started making trips up to North Bay, to just hang out and have some fun. It was a real fun town to come to when you're a young single guy. It's changed a lot. And then 2008, I met who would become my future wife, who lives in North Bay, moved up here, and I've been up here ever since. So
Different sense of change, though. Busy,
yeah,
high frequency of Guelph to very smallish at the
yeah,
time town.
but I always liked North Bay, and I always said that I was just looking for the right reason to move up here. I always enjoyed it, and I guess the right reason was when I met my wife, obviously. But the town's really, really changed, and which I guess I don't miss much of it. I'm 53 coming up in October, so I don't go out to the nightclubs or whatever.
No.
There used to be so many. There used to be so many nice nightclubs and bars. You can go to something different every week, every night of the week. Now it's not there, but it's okay. I'm good, But it's really changed a lot. North Bay's been real good to me, with wrestling, with work, with family, obviously. So I consider it. It's my town now, right?
Hey, and that's what's awesome about it, right? I mean, myself and my wife, I'm respectively from Toronto. She's from Whitby.
Okay.
We live up here now. We were looking for somewhere to set our roots, and this is a very calming, welcoming community. So it's amazing. So I understand where you're coming from with that whole sense of community. Now, I want to backtrack a little bit.
Sure.
Where have you been in wrestling, whether it be professionally, indie? Where have you gone?
Well,
whether it be tryouts or just doing indie shows, I'm interested to learn.
When I first started, obviously it was Southern Ontario. Did shows down around the Cambridge area, Brantford area. Started working with Ricky Johnson in Toronto there, and he took quite a liking to me, and I think I was his Northern Light Heavyweight Champion. I think it was a CWA, I believe were the initials for his promotion. So I ran with him, ventured into the States a little bit, Michigan, New York State. I can't remember the names of them. It was always, I got this job, let's go. And back then, I was one of the only people that had a car, which makes me a commodity. It's like, hey, kid, you want to give me a ride to Detroit? I'll get you on the Battle Royal. Well, I can't tell you how many Battle Royals I didn't get on, but you still make the drives and you go down there and you pick up the bookings here and there. And honestly, I couldn't tell you even the names of some of the promotions I worked for at the time. It was just, we're going to Detroit. All right, let's go to Detroit. We're going to Philadelphia. So I would hit up a lot of them. The first few years, I did a lot of that. A little bit, not too much in Quebec, surprisingly, and actually never ever west of Ontario, but mostly Ontario, crossing the border into the States there a little bit. North Carolina, I know I did. West Virginia. I'm trying to remember. I think it was USWF. And I mean, this is going way back now. These ones aren't even around anymore. But I did USWF as a company in the States that ran quite a bit at the time. Bob Bailey, I think, was the name of the promoter. I went down there and wrestled with him a few times. And then early 2000s, I came back and really stopped doing a lot of the traveling. Started working mainly Ontario, booking. I think I've always been a pretty good booker, and I was asked to help a friend of mine who was running the IWF, if I could help, with booking, help him with some, problems that he's having. And next thing you know, I took over the book. established myself as having a reputation as a great booker. When IWF folded, I got approached by another company to book with them. Ran with that company for a year. That one folded. And another company calls me up. Can you book? So I found myself booking more than I found myself wrestling.
Right.
You know, and I enjoyed it. I always loved booking. I can remember when I first walked into that school back in 96, 97, I walked in to see if I could help in the office.
Right.
Right. And I ended up wrestling. So, now I'm getting a chance to do booking, which I really, really loved. And I did that 2000. I did that up until about 2008, 2009. And then I wasn't booking for anyone. I was just picking up a few shows here and there. Like I said, I was starting to slow down then.
Right.
And then 2010 is when I I called it. Took my little sabbatical for 6 years, and then now I'm just been Northland, right, since 2016. So,
I mean, like you said, if the universe told you something, now you own a company. So obviously the universe is like, you're the booker that we need. So here's the company. Make it
maybe,
happen.
yeah. It was crazy. Like even the way I ended up with the ring. I'm going around looking to rent a ring for this tribute show I want to do. Now, when I used to rent the rings, they were $400.
Right.
Big Mac, who used to rent the ring to me all the time, liked me, gave it to me for $300. Right. So now I'm calling up, looking around. Well, who's got a ring? And I got to remember, I'm way the hell up north now. I'm 4 hours up north. I'm not down in the Toronto area.
Right.
So I'm getting all these numbers like $1,000. And I'm like, oh, okay. I don't know if that's in my budget, right? Because I'm scrambling. Like I didn't have any cash flow to put the show on. It was all just coming from sponsorship or ticket sales, which I hadn't yet got started. So, when I go out and I'm thinking naively, so $400 for a ring, and it's almost triple that, I'm like, okay, there's a problem.
Right.
So I'm sitting down and I'm about to go into a meeting at work. So I'm in the boardroom at my shoot job, and I just happen to pop Facebook open, and I see this picture, and it's a ring and a bunch of guys in it doing a battle royal, and I'm one of the guys, and I recognize the photo. And it says right under the picture, it's time to find a new home for the old girl. I'm like, what's this? The guy's selling the ring. I'm like, oh, I know that ring. He just posted it 2 minutes earlier. Okay. So I messaged him right away. How much? And he threw a number at me real quick. And again, I'm like, good price, but do I have the cash? And I muttered under my breath, oh, I wish I had X amount of dollars. And the guy next to me said, for what? And I said, so I can buy this ring. He says, oh, is that so you can do that tribute show for Adam? And he knew him. And I said, yeah. And he goes, I'll give you the money. And I'm like, wow. What do you mean you give me the money? He goes, I'll just give it to you. Like, to pay you back? No, I'll give it to you. I'm like, what? I said, we'll talk, right? And the ring was in Hamilton, and I was just so happened that weekend to be going down to Waterdown, which is 15 minutes from Hamilton. So here I am, and all of a sudden needing a ring. Here's a ring that shows up for sale. Needing the money. Here's the guy offering me money.
The stars are all aligning here.
So I said, hey, I'll be down to take a look at the ring. I went down, took a look at the ring. And then it was a matter of, okay, now I got to go and pick the ring up. So I got to get a truck. I had someone goes, you need a truck? I'll give you my company truck. So I get a free truck to drive down and pick this thing up. Like, everything just started lining up. So the next thing you know, I own a ring. So, and that was one of the reasons why, we kept going. It's like, well, what am I going to do now that I have a ring? I only wanted to do one show. Well, I guess I'm going to have to do more shows now. And that's kind of, how Northland got started, So
I guess you could say it was the Northern Star pointing in the right direction.
I guess so. And, and that's, if you look at the logo too of Northland, you can see like the compass, there's a compass pointing north in it. It's a little intricate detail in the logo there. So yeah, it's pointing me in the right direction. Everything's kind of, it's taken a roundabout longer than you would think way to get here. But, all things happen when they're meant to happen, I guess.
So. How does the phrase go? It's not a race, it's a marathon.
Yeah. Oh, I use it all the time. Yeah. Yeah. And as long as you're always going forward, that's what this is. That's a sempre avanti. It's Italian. It says always forward. Just keep going
I love
forward.
that.
Yeah.
I love that. So my next part, it's not wrestling related yet, but I also learned recently that you're a DDP yoga instructor.
Yeah.
Or-
Yeah. DDP yoga level 1.
So you've gone down, I believe, to where, I don't know where he is located. Have you gone down there, or is it a course you've taken up here?
The course you take sort of on your own. And then you have to like present it. He has people that like approve you.
Right.
But I was doing it for a little while, and then he actually came to Guelph back in, I think it was 2018, because right after I tore my ACL, he came to Guelph, and I think I had my ACL surgery, and 2 weeks later I'm in his seminar in Guelph with 160 other people doing it, and they set the record at the time for the most people doing DDP yoga in one place at one time. And he came down, and he's a fantastic dude. Like, he'll meet you once and make you feel like he's known you forever, and will know you, and he won't bullshit you either when he comes along and says he knows you, because he knows who you are. And it was like he just remembers people. He's a great people person. So I met him there, chatted with him briefly. I actually was invited to go to, there was an after party for the guy who hosted the whole thing, and hung out with him there, had a couple of drinks with him, and just socialized. And then, he called me up one time too, because Jimmy Garvin of the Fabulous Freebirds, Jimmy Jam Garvin there, gorgeous Jimmy Garvin. He and I are close friends, and he was talking to Dallas about me, and the next, Dallas is calling me up, and I thought that was kind of cool. And, so now, I got his number, and, I don't overuse it. I'm not going to call him, hey, Dally, what are you doing?
Yeah.
Kind of thing.
But I did this weekend. We go get some drinks.
I did go down last year to his performance center in Smyrna, Georgia.
Okay.
And all the instructors, a bunch of instructors and certain key people in the DDPY community get invited to come down every year. He usually invites, I think, like 100 people or so. And I made the cut last year. I didn't make the cut this year. I don't know why, but whatever. That's good. That's cool. And he's just a good guy. Takes the time to chat with everybody, make them all feel welcome, and even now, like every once in a while, I'll shoot him a text just to kind of like stay in touch. And where I've been trying to get him to come to North Bay to do some DDPY up here and maybe tie it in with the show, to no avail yet. But I'm not giving up on that.
I don't think you should. I think it'd be great to see him up here.
With
that, so I'll segue into that. Who have you had who might be on the bigger scale of things come into Northland?
Well, for the most part, I didn't believe in bringing in names. And one of the reasons for that is I didn't need to.
Right.
I'm drawing pretty good numbers. And then I started looking at it like, well, who would you bring in that would actually, like, I like making money.
I think everybody does, but I get what you're coming from.
My thing is like, I've got my little formula for figuring it out. If this guy costs X amount of dollars to bring in, or to bring the guy in, I then need to bring in X amount of people to pay for him, and then X amount of people to make the profit. And if I'm paying the same amount, if I'm paying way more money to bring in the same amount of people, right? Or even if the people I bring in, if say there are more people, but my bottom line is still the same, then what's the point, Right. Aside from saying, I had, 500 people here or whatever. Now, that being said, when I did the 504, people, we had Trent Seven on the show, and Trent Seven got signed when I was already at 375 tickets sold. Right. So, we were already on track to hit a really, really good number without a big name.
Right.
And I even jokingly said to Trent, I said, actually, ticket sales slowed down after I booked you.
Gotta
He's a
keep them
great guy.
humble.
He's a great guy. But prior to that, I think we had Eddie Dennis. He's from NXT UK. Not a lot of people would be familiar with him. Hardcore people would.
Right.
I had him on, and he was like one of the more pricier guys. But it was like, let's try it out. The money's kind of there a little bit. Let's just see. Coming up on the shows coming up now, I have two. I have Sawyer Fulton and Alan Angels.
Right.
So, they would be, Alan Angels is he's on TV every week with Impact.
Right.
It's a debate on, who's a bigger talent, who's a bigger name. When you say Trent Seven, a lot of people like, Trent Seven. A lot of people know him, especially,
very opinionated based on that, right?
Right, exactly.
You could say Trent Seven was bigger, but then you can also say Alan Angels was bigger because of who he worked with and what he did.
Right, precisely. And then even like Sawyer Fulton, he or Madman Fulton, he's got a million names. Madman Fulton, he's recently. I know he was on AEW, but it was like AEW Dark. I know he's made appearances on Impact recently. And he was on NXT way back, but the original Sanity member before he got hurt, right?
Right.
But he's somebody who seems to be a great guy to talk to online. And wanted to bring him in for a while, and so I got him coming in. And a lot of times too, even if people don't necessarily know who they are, you got somebody who looks like Fulton, who clearly is a big dude. He's in shape, very professional garb, and then you just say who he is. If the people take the time to do the research, then they're like, "Oh man, I want to go. Like this guy's good." Go right, and that helps. But we're really testing it out. I keep sitting there saying, who is a name that I can bring up here that will guarantee to bring people in, right, and be cost effective to do, right?
I know you had Chris. I think it's Chris Masters still.
I didn't have Chris Masters. That wasn't me. No, Chris Masters was brought in with CWE in Sudbury. He worked Josh Bain, who is one of my guys and one of my students. Yeah, so he's done that. That's a that's the whole school thing. Yeah.
I apologize. I thought it was just
no, all good. But I mean, I look at somebody like Chris Masters, and I'm like, yeah, great guy to talk with, great guy to deal with. And way freaking better than a lot of people give him credit for, and who knows? I think he's still a recognizable name and face,
so.
and I think he's somebody that I can go into business with and bring him up here. But those are the things that I'm really just now kind of figuring it out,
Right. But you're at that level now where you think you're comfortable enough that you can make those phone calls that you might not have 5 years ago.
Right.
Because now you're feeling a little bit more comfortable with it. Yeah,
I know that the money's there, and it's not very much. It's not a risk as much of a risk, right? I always had, I have my own little formulas that are mine that I come up with, and I say I need to make this amount of money on every show in order for it to be successful. Well, with the growing numbers, that number is now getting bigger and bigger and bigger. It's higher and higher. It's not where it was. So, then it's like, well, what do I do? Do I want to make $1,000 less but have 100 more people in the audience? There's got to be a trade-off, right? So, and perception, you don't see my bank account. You don't see my coffers at the end of the night, but you see the butts in the seats. You know what I mean? Right. So you're like, oh, they had 600 people there. That's awesome. But if I turn around and say, hey, I had 300 people, but I made way more freaking money than the guy with 600 people, who's the winner, right?
Yeah.
So it all depends on what your goal is. And I do have the goals don't change too much, but from show to show, it's always the same kind of goal. But I am at that point, like I said, where I'm kind of reevaluating what the goals are, where I was still, trying to keep that forward momentum going.
And I think you're doing wonderful at it, and hopefully that momentum picks up a little bit faster too for you.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
So with that said, the next thing I want to ask about is the titles within your promotion. Where'd you come up with the names for them, and where'd the ideas come up in your head there?
Well, for me, I've always hated the idea of a world title. You know, I got all these companies. You know, I have a world title. Really?
Right.
Where have you defended it? Well, just in Hamilton. Well, how's it a world title? Right? You know, world title is you should defend it if you run internationally. You have
Right.
a world title. You know, so I was like, so what can we call it? What can we call our main championship to, you know, still give it prestige? I didn't want to just be the Northland Wrestling champion. I didn't want that, you know, but something that had its own identity. And,
Right.
you know, we're up in North Bay. The company's called Northland. Game of Thrones was big at the time. They kept talking about King of the North, King of the North. I thought, King of the North, King of the North champion. I thought that'd be a good name. And, you know, it just, to me, I liked it, and it works. So we chose that. And then I think after that, we brought the Northland tag team titles in. I didn't get as fancy with that one, you know.
I mean, it's tag team wrestling. I mean, we can sit and shoot on it all day, but it is what it is at the end of the day.
Yeah, you know, and
It's tag
like
team championship wrestling.
To me, I don't think the belts reflect this, but it's supposed to just be the Northland tag team champions, not Northland Wrestling tag team champions, the Northland tag team champions. That's what it's supposed to be. And then I guess I did the women's title after that. So, you know, then I'm stuck on that. And I'm like, well, what, you know, I don't want to be Queen of the North. I think that's just, you know, I don't think that sounds right. And then it kind of puts it, well, the king and the queen, are they a couple? You know?
Yeah, then it becomes something you don't want it to be. And
right. So I started thinking, you know, what could I call it? What could I call it? I always had the idea for like a light heavyweight title, something to do with Northern Lights or North Star or something like that. But there's a Facebook group called North Stars, and it's dedicated to women wrestling. So I thought, all right, maybe, you know, I could kind of tie that in. And so I contacted the guy that runs the page, and I told him my idea. And I said, hey, I want to, you know, I'm going to have a belt, and I'm thinking of calling it the North Star Championship. And, you know, I didn't, even though it is a gender specific title, I didn't want it to sound like a gender specific title. You know what I mean? I didn't want it to be the Northland Women's Champion. Right?
No, you want it to be on par with your men's championship.
But they don't ever say the WWE Men's Champion.
No.
It's the WWE Champion. Right?
Yeah.
So I wanted to avoid that and just give it its own identity, its own standalone identity. And so we went with North Star. And then for the next one, I figured we needed a mid-card title. And, you know, always been a big fan of the Intercontinental title. You know, but again, I'm not going to have the Northland Intercontinental title.
No.
You know? And I didn't want to, you know, WCW's mid-card title, and even now WWE's adopted it, the US title. So I'm thinking, okay, well, our counterpart would be the Canadian title. I don't want that. You know, it sounds too done, too cliche. And plus there's a lot of people running around saying we're the Canadian champion. So I started thinking of what could I call it? And I always loved the term True Patriot. I've kind of used it for a few other little things that I've been involved in. And I thought, well, True Patriot. What is that? True Patriot in Canada. It's Canadian. So it's basically like a Canadian title. It gives you a feeling of a Canadian title without saying it's a Canadian title. So we called it True Patriot. We slapped I think it's a beautiful belt. We'll be getting a new one at some point. But I think the current one is a beautiful belt with the white strap. I really like that look. We slapped
that
on.
That seems to be the go-to for a lot of people, that, especially collectors. I collect belts myself. I have a nice stack. If I was able to show you tonight, I would. I have the white strap Intercontinental. It's just one of the ones I actually find that had that prestige to it.
Yeah, no, I like it. It stands out. It looks really, really, I don't know, catchy, dynamic. I don't know. But
just something about it.
Yeah, exactly. So, you know, those are the titles. Those are the names behind them. Like I said, I just wanted them to be, you know, have their own little identity, you know, and I am considering bringing one more title soon, you know, and just playing with the, you know, the name of that one. I wanted it to be kind of cool and catchy, but there's also, I don't want to give too much away, but there's also a nostalgia factor because
Right.
Northland Wrestling, I take the name from the original company, Northland Wrestling Enterprises, that
Right.
headquartered in North Bay and was part of the NWA. Like if you ever go and look at an old NWA map, Northland Wrestling Enterprises pops up on that map in North Bay. So
That's cool. I like that
I
little
took
history
the name
lesson.
as an homage to that, and I actually tracked down the son of the owner. Larry Kazabowski was the owner of Northland Wrestling Enterprises. He's passed away, but I tracked down the son, and there wasn't a copyright or anything like that on the name, but I didn't want to just take it. So I asked the son, told him what I wanted to do, and he says, "No problem. You have my blessing to use the name. Just mention my dad every once in a while." So there, I did it. So.
Hey, I mean, it's just a respectability thing, right? And
Yeah, exactly. And I
you
like
could
to,
have easily taken it and done what you wanted to with it, but you felt the need to make everything right and make sure it was all on par. So I
I
commend
mean,
you for that.
that's how I try. I try and do it. That's just me. I want everything on par, on the level, and you know, so it works for me, right? So, it'd be nice if more people were that way, I guess. But
I
anyways,
get it.
that's it. But yeah, I might be bringing a new belt in, and it might have a tie-in to Northland Wrestling Enterprises, just to have a bit more of that, sort of nostalgia, lineage, legacy, whatever you want to call it.
Definitely look forward to seeing that. The next question I have for you is, what is your thoughts on today's wrestling product of kayfabe, no kayfabe, and too much fan interaction on today's product?
Whoa, wow. There's
Because you guys do have a social media presence, don't get me wrong,
yeah.
but you're not like listening per se to what we're saying. You're doing your thing because that's what got you here. But
Right.
like that's kind of where I'm going with this. Like, where's your thoughts on the kayfabe? Is it live? Is it dead?
Um, kayfabe. I always use the expression kayfabe is dead, but it doesn't mean you need to piss on its grave. You know, um, listen, the cat's out of the bag. You can't put the toothpaste back in the tube. It's out, right?
Right.
But that being said, I mean, there's a lot of junk being done. So much junk is out there, and it's awful and it's horrible. And it's on TV, and it's on AEW, and it's on WWE, okay, as well. It's on NXT, and a lot of that to me is unforgivable. I don't want to come across like like a crazy Jim Cornette guy or anything like that, because Jim's got to get with the times, although he makes a lot of valid points.
Say what you want to say. We very well we love hearing everybody's opinion. So anything you want to say.
There's a lot of shit out there, okay, and there's a lot of people on TV that shouldn't be on TV, and I could give you a myriad of examples, but I don't, like I said, I don't want to turn into this ranting old guy on
I get it.
But this crap, the thigh slapping constantly. Oh Jesus, Murphy.
Or thigh slapping, excuse me, not knee slapping.
Enough of that. Just the goofiness, the things that like this is.
When so you're not a fan of guys like Orange Cassidy, and then for comedic wrestling,
hate Orange Cassidy. I mean, and the guy can work. That's the thing. The dude can work, but he's, he's playing this crap. It's like, dude, like seriously, I know it's wrestling. I know you're supposed to suspend your disbelief, but if I'm in a fight with a guy, and this is what I explain to my students too, okay? It's wrestling, sure. But wrestling is supposed to be the portrayal of an actual physical conflict that you're having, a fight that you're having, okay? If I got a guy that I'm trying to beat, okay, and he's standing this close to me, and he's doing this crap, I'm punching him in the face. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
This is like, sorry, like if you were in a boxing fight and the guy just put his gloves down, right?
You're striking. Yeah, you're striking.
Punch him. It's absolutely ridiculous, right? And it's like, I believe that stuff does have a time and a place to do it. If he didn't do it so much and in every freaking match, you know, maybe it would be a bit more, less abrasive for me. But again, that's where his money's made, right? He's the pockets guy. He's the guy who does, the lazy stuff, the stupid little kicks, all that crap.
Yeah.
But to me, I feel it makes the other wrestler look like an idiot.
Yeah. I mean, at that point, you might as well be wrestling an inanimate object if you're just going to be doing that.
Or a blow up doll, right, Kenny?
Some of those Japan stuff is really good. Some.
Yeah, come on. But but there's a lot of stuff, like I was watching NXT a few weeks back, and I was really surprised to see this stuff, considering like Shawn Michaels is like, credited for coaching.
I think he's losing his damn mind, but that's beside the point.
Yeah, well, I believe it was Carmelo Hayes. So, one of the things that I can't stand is when you do a move and the move can only be done because it's in response to an action that your opponent is doing that you couldn't possibly know he was going to do unless you talked about it beforehand, right?
Right.
And this is an example that I saw. Carmelo Hayes, and I don't know who he was wrestling, but he's punching the guy in the corner, and he's in the corner, and then suddenly he runs out of the corner, leaves the guy in the corner. The guy did not make a move. He's sitting in the corner still. Carmelo turns his back to him, no longer looking at him, runs across the ring to the middle of the ropes, bounces on the second rope, and he comes back to, I don't know what he was doing. I have no idea.
I don't watch NXT very much, to be fair with you, because of that.
Right. Now, the other guy suddenly rolls to the middle of the ring and catches Carmelo with a cutter or something. And I'm thinking, oh, did that look cool? Sure. But what the hell was Carmelo doing? If that guy hadn't rolled to the center of the ring,
it doesn't make sense.
What exactly? And so I see that and I was like, what is that? And and I showed it to my students and I dared them to come up with a plausible scenario in which that made sense. And we couldn't come up with any of it. Right? Was it a timing issue? Did the guy not stagger forward like he was supposed to? Well, if so, Carmelo, then you don't do the move right just yet. You wait. But these guys, when they get into too much of this scripted stuff, I'm very much a big fan of calling it in the ring. And I try and teach my students the same way. And they're getting really good at that. They just did, even some of the weaker ones we just saw a match. They did a 6-man tag in the gym on Thursday. And I just said, 6-man tag, you three against you three, you guys go over, go.
Right.
And I pretty much rang the bell. That was it. To me, unbelievable what these 6 guys came up with. Even the guys who are, not as advanced. You couldn't tell that none of it was planned. It was all called in the ring. And it was really good. I was so impressed. And I think a lot of that is lacking in today's wrestling. Now, again, I'm not backstage. I don't know how much of it is planned, but you can clearly tell the ones that are. And there's a lot of them. It's more prevalent in AEW, because, the stuff that some of them are doing, some of these luchadors, and I love Lucha Libre Wrestling, but some of the crap like Commander, or
where he's bouncing on the ropes for 5 minutes and then
does
the move.
Or Vikingo there, whatever, where he takes 5 minutes to set up a spot. It's like, come on, And I just saw a clip. I'm not even going to say the name of the guy because people will get all upset, and I don't even know the context of it. But I'll describe it, and if I describe it well enough, I think people will know who I'm talking about. So you got a guy lying on some table. It looked like it was an autograph signing or something. So one guy's lying on the table. The other guy's standing over him, straddling him with his back to his face. And he does a backflip, lands on his knees on the guy with his knees, and he smashes him through the table. Now, looks fantastic. I don't know the setup because, of course, I just see, a second before he does it. But the
Right.
dude on the table is clearly watching him. He's clearly anticipating it. He could clearly get off the table, but no, he's laying there and he's just waiting for this thing. And then you can just like watch him, like, is he going to go? Is he going to go? And he's staring at this guy about to do this. And it's like, guys, like, don't you realize how fake that looks?
Yeah.
Right. And
I
it's
mean,
like,
in a world where like myself, I'm a fan and a person that talks about it, you're a promoter and somebody who does it. When somebody that's not in this world comes into it and be like, well, you see this, this, and this, and this, we know, but it shouldn't look like that to you.
right. Right.
And it's hard to defend it sometimes because they're like, well, we can see legs being slapped and we can see the timing and we can hear them talking. We understand that. And it sucks because you put so much into this, as I'm sure you more than me, you put so much time into training your students not to allow the audience to see that. And then you see these professionals doing it, and it's hard to teach your students that because
they see it on
I just
TV.
seen it on TV.
Oh, man, I'm fighting with the knee slapping with them all the time. All the time. You know, and my rule is do it once, do it twice in a match. That's it. And, you know, and there are certain parts of the body where it doesn't matter what you strike it with, it's not going to make that sound. You know? Yeah. And why do you have to make that sound? Like I saw a guy do it when he kicked the back of someone's knee, just to bend the guy's knee so he can drop down. And he's like, and not only do you hear it, which does not sound like a convincing sound.
It's not natural.
But you see them because the guys are horrible at doing it. You know, like Shawn Michaels, I guess, you know, he started it, right? But you never saw his hand hit.
No.
Right? You never saw it.
The Young Bucks are good at covering it too, but they'll do it to also make fun of it sometimes. Yes, they'll make fun of it, but they're good at covering it too. But then you have a lot of people that just aren't.
Yeah, and
I watched SmackDown. Right? I think it was 2 weeks ago. I went on this rave about it, and it was Santos Escobar, and you could see him every 2 seconds just slapping, and I got so annoyed I had to turn it off.
Yeah, and it's like, why? It's like Michaels did it on his Sweet Chin Music, and that was it.
Yeah,
right. To put over that move. If you do it all the time, right, it makes it less significant. It doesn't mean anything anymore. And I just wish people would realize that. Like, you know, if I'm sitting there and I'm saying I'm making my hot comeback, right, and I'm firing up and I pop the guy and he staggers, then I pop the guy and he spins around, and then when he comes that last one, I pop him and I, you know, slap, and they go, oh, and that's the one he bumps on, and be like, oh wow. But if I'm every one of them, like, you know, it doesn't make any sense, you know.
No, it doesn't.
But whatever.
Favorite match throughout wrestling history that you would love to participate in and promote?
That I would love to participate in and promote?
Yeah.
Oh, man. I really hate when people ask me my favorite, because you know what? I don't have favorite anything. It's, I don't know. It's,
what's a match you would just love to participate in? And I'll take out the favoritism part of it.
A match that I would have loved to have been in?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, like actually wrestling in?
Yep, 100%. You want to go into it, just wrestling, giving it all your all.
Man.
We'll take up the Royal Rumble because you've already told us you've done a lot of battle royals or have.
Oh, yeah, right. Yeah. Oh, yeah. You know, I was always a fan. I love tournaments. So I think if I was ever involved in a King of the Ring, I always loved the King of the Ring tournament. I always loved that. So if I was ever involved in a King of the Ring, that'd have been good. I still think one of the best performances was when Brett won it. I loved how every single match he had on that show, he brought its own like flavor to it. Where, you know, I love that. And Survivor Series. I love elimination tags. I've always been a big fan of tag team wrestling.
Right.
I would have been a tag team wrestler, but I guess I didn't get along with enough people to form a tag team buddy. But, you know, yeah, you know, like elimination tags, like Survivor Series, King of the Ring would have been great. I'm not sure if I'm answering the question you're asking. But
no, you did. You're answering it. I'm fine with the answer. It works well for me.
Yeah, those would have been good. You know, Rumbles, sure, but yeah, no, I always loved a tournament style, show. And I used to book the tournament style show. Miller Memorial Cup was my tournament show every year. And I've abandoned it. When COVID happened, we just kind of like restarted. I might bring it back at some point, but it's hard when you do a tournament style show and you want to make it a good tournament, because then you're basically, there's a lot of matches on one show. You're
Right.
basically 7 matches is the tournament.
Yeah.
If you do an 8-man tournament, there's 7 matches, and then then you need a couple of matches in between the rounds to give the guys a break. They're ready for So now you're doing 10 matches on the show, and especially if you're trying to advance storylines, you're kind of handicapped by the tournament format, right?
Right.
And I think in the past I did very good. I found creative ways to carry on, programs with people when they were in tournaments and still able to advance storylines. I thought we did really good with that. But, I might bring it back at some point. Maybe not in the way it was, but maybe I might do it over the course of a couple of shows and have like the semifinals and the finals all in one show. I don't know. We'll figure it out. We're doing more shows, so we'll see what happens.
I got one more main product before I head into the final segment with you.
Sure.
As a booker, so I'm coming to you not as a wrestler, as a booker.
Right.
You watch the modern product right now?
Yes, I do.
More WWE, AEW.
I was mainly watching AEW, but I've kind of fallen off the last few weeks. I do want to get back to start watching Collision because I hear they're pretty good, and the couple that I've seen has been pretty good.
Yeah, so have I. It's been great. I went to Forbidden Door, so I was lucky for that.
Yeah, I was there too. Yeah, we were there for that weekend.
But what I wanted to ask you as a booker, is there anything that you wouldn't have done so far in the Bloodline story in WWE, or do you think it's on project to be one of the greatest of all time in wrestling?
Okay, now I might not be equipped to answer this because I've never really followed it. I was aware of it. It's been going on for 4 years now, I think.
3 years, yeah, 3.5 years.
I was joking, but
yeah, it's been going on for a hot minute.
I think I've heard what people have said about it. It's the greatest thing in wrestling, and I'm like, well, if the greatest thing in wrestling is talking, then it's not wrestling, you know. And obviously WWE, they're sports entertainment, so they're entertaining people with these 20-minute segments or whatever that are just talking and will he, won't he kind of thing. That's what it seemed like. Wasn't it at one point Jimmy didn't like Sammy, then it was Jay who didn't like him, then they become friends, and then he had a problem. So, it seems to me. Sorry, go ahead.
It goes wild, yeah. It
kind of goes out there, and to me, the whole time I'm looking at it saying, well, what's the payoff? Everything's got to have a payoff.
Right.
And so who is it? Is it Jay taking on Roman?
Yeah, it's Jay taking on Roman.
Is that the payoff? Is Jay going to take the strap from Roman?
That's what we're all waiting to see. I mean, in my opinion, he's not losing it till 40, but.
Right. So is this to do what? Is this to get Jay over as a singles wrestler? Right.
I mean, they accomplished that 3 years ago when they started this run.
Right. So to me, it's all about where's it going, right? The big thing was that it looked like it would be Sammy. I mean, organically, he got himself to the point where the fans wanted him to win that title. Okay, obviously, front office had a different plan. If Sammy had won the title there, it could have ended there, right? And it would have ended with a pretty big-ass payoff. Is Sammy the guy to carry the title? Maybe for a couple of months, but we would have had a big-ass payoff. Well, he didn't win the title, okay? Right. And then I guess prior to that was Cody at WrestleMania. He didn't win the title, but, I mean, that really wasn't Bloodline story. So they keep it going. So Roman's got the title, and who's he going to lose it to? That's always the thing. Who is the next guy? I don't care how you present it. It's not Jey Uso.
No.
And just say Jey does win the title. Do we really see Jey Uso as the WWE, whatever it is called now, champion? I don't.
In today's world where the internet is a hot commodity, even if that's what you want, by Wednesday next week, that's not what you're going to want.
Yeah, exactly. So I mean, I don't know. I think obviously it does numbers for them. It does ratings for them. What would I have done? Everyone can sit here and play armchair booker and say what we would have done. I personally would have put the strap on Sammy. I would have put the strap on Sammy and then have Roman take it back from him. But they want him to be undefeated, right?
Right.
It was similar with CM Punk. I always say, and people will say I'm an idiot, especially when you look at what happened later. When Ryback faced CM Punk for the title, Ryback should have gone over. Because in my mind, at that time, Ryback was super freaking hot, and we hadn't seen anyone like him in a long time that had the crowd behind him like that. I mean, it wasn't Sami Zayn hot, but we hadn't seen anybody like that in a position, this big jacked up dude who was intense, who had these signature moves that the crowd chanted along, the feed me more, the crowd was right behind this guy. And if he had come out and beat CM Punk, I think it would have been an interesting time, but they had other plans. I don't know if the whole let's have CM Punk go undefeated for this long. And I like CM Punk. I liked him back then. I just thought that they could have had lightning in the bottle with Ryback. So the same thing going, with Sami Zayn, same kind of thing there, even bigger, right? Because the people just genuinely love Sami.
If you would have given Sammy the strap in Montreal, I feel like you almost could just make up for the screw job.
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't even thinking about that, but quite possibly, yeah, for sure. And and he doesn't even have to hold it very long. 2 months, 3 months, lose it to Roman. But again, they had their plans. It was going to be Sammy and Kevin, and that's great too. But what are they doing? I don't think they're as hot as they were a couple months
Kevin's
back.
hurt again or now, so I don't know.
Okay. But I mean, there's a lot of things that go on. There's the politics game. There's the long-term plans that the people have. People come up to me all the time too. This is what you should be doing tonight. Meanwhile, I've got my ideas all planned out, and I'm a firm believer in the fact that everyone thinks they're the best booker in the world, but they're wrong because I am. Okay. But that's true. Everyone thinks they're the best booker. And it takes, I think, a very special individual to go, I haven't got a clue, please book for me. And like I said, in the past, I've had those people, have me book for them. And that's cool. But, in indie wrestling, it's very seldom that you're ever going to find that. And obviously, you got the same thing in the bigger markets too, in the WWE. Like, they've got a plan. That's what their plan's going to be. And, simple as that. I mean, John Cena, look at John Cena. The natural thing to do would have been to turn that guy heel. But they said, nope, we're going to stick it out, and we're going to have this guy do what he does. What would it have been if he had been heel?
It would have been Hogan-esque all over again.
Yeah,
but we'll never know, because that's never going to happen.
We'll never know. We'll never know at this point. But, realistically, one of the things that I have learned, though, from the Cena thing, and we're seeing it with CM Punk now, is, when you get a guy who gets that kind of reaction, that's money. Whether they're booing them or cheering them, they're reacting. And they're reacting in a feverish way, So, and that's money, and it's better than them not reacting at all. You're back. There you are.
I don't know what happened there. My phone.
I kept the show going for you, though. I had it covered.
I appreciate that. Thank you, sir. Now, I'm going to head into the go-home part. Tell me what it's like being the trainers of the young guys coming up and the habits, because I know you have a match coming up here. I believe it's August 26th, correct? Right. Your last match.
That's the plan, yes.
Versus Tommy
McLeod.
Who, to me, I watched him there in Durham here, and he reminds me of a very young Tyler Black. Not Seth Rollins, but a Tyler Black. He has that element to him, and I like it.
Okay.
And I don't think that's a compliment to you with your training style. So what's it like bringing up these guys and training them?
Like I said, most fulfilling thing I've ever done. The first time we ever did a student showcase with the first what was it, 6 of them? I think we had 6 with the first 6 guys. It was most like an incredibly special night to be able to like. And I only worked with them for 3 months, right? And I didn't say. And my whole mentality too is I always tell everybody, look, you're going to come in and I'm going to get you ring ready in 3 months. I'm not saying you're a professional wrestler in 3 months.
No.
I'm not saying that. I'm saying that in 3 months, if all goes well, you'll be able to go out there and perform a match, okay, and a good, passable, plausible match. Well, the first 6 guys that I had, with the exception of one guy, he's no longer with us, and that's a whole other story we won't get into. But the first, 5 of the 6 guys, they went out there and they blew me away. They blew everyone away, and I attribute that to the fact that they are very talented. And yeah, I will, with all humbleness aside and not bragging, I guess I'm doing something right in training them. It's been fulfilling. It's been challenging. You get guys, you mentioned Tommy. I've had to slow that guy down because that guy is a hummingbird. He has a hummingbird in his brain and he's got a squirrel in his ass. Oh, that didn't sound right. That didn't sound right. Okay, that didn't sound right. He is just I have to slow him down. And to see him when he did that, he worked Jimmy in Durham, and I thought that was a really, really good match. And to see how fast he was moving in that match, and to consider that I've had to slow him down probably 75% because he was doing things way too fast. His brain way too fast. So that was the challenge with him, is slowing him down. The challenge with others is confidence. They walk in, they've got all this freaking natural talent, and they don't see it, and they don't think they're doing things right. And I'm like, you got to be kidding me. Zandra Lee is kind of who I have in mind when I talk about that. That girl is going to be amazing. That girl,
she can go from what I remember watching the other day there.
She's only 17.
That's crazy.
And she approached me. She is actually the impetus for why I eventually opened the school. She approached me when she was 12 at a Northland show and asked me to train her. And I remember thinking, go away, you're 12. Like, what are you doing? And then, but that put the bug in my head about training. She was the first person that came up to me and asked me to train her. And, then the idea came along. COVID kind of screwed stuff up. But I eventually established the school in 2021, and I did it with the crash course. And she had approached me. She kept bugging me. She kept bugging me over the next 3 years. And then, she'd check, did you open the school yet? Are you going to open the school yet? Would you train me? And I'm like, what the, can't get rid of this chick. What's, and then when I finally did I called it a crash course, and it was just get people in, see what they can do, and go from there. I'd forgotten about her, right? I didn't reach out to her and say, hey, I'm doing a crash course. Luckily, she heard about it, and her and her sister showed up. And, her sister didn't stick with it, although I think she had some potential too. But Zandra, all the potential in the world, super freaking tough. Absolutely love that chick. She's going to go far, really, really far, I think. And, but, with her, it was bringing that confidence out in here. And I believe she's got it. Every once in a while, I need to remind her. But I think she's gotten past that. And then you got guys like Rusty. Rusty, very limited in what he can do. We were able to get really good performances out of him when he sits and he listens, so he's been a challenge, but he's also a guy that from the time he walked into to where he is now, I believe he's lost 75, 80 pounds.
Yeah.
And can do things that you wouldn't think. I constantly underestimate him, and I got to stop doing that. I'll be like, okay, dude, you don't have to do this drill because, you're not going to be able to keep up. And he's like, no, let me try, boss. And he gets in and he keeps up. Yeah, he's not fast like Jimmy or fast like Tommy or even Josh, But for a big guy who shouldn't be able to do what he's doing, we got him doing sunset flips,
Right.
And, he's still 325, 335 pounds with the litany of injuries. And, he's not a spring chicken, but he's in there. I thought he had a great match with Josh. But the Digglers, I think, are going to be great.
They remind me, with all due respect, of the Young Bucks.
Oh, it's funny because they
the
don't
flashiness to them, not the in-ring style,
yeah,
but the flashiness.
Yeah. They're not big fans of the Young Bucks either. That's funny, but no, they are. It's more. Derek is more of the flashy guy. Danny is taking that from his brother, but originally he was more of a serious performer.
Well, how do you guys introduce them? They're your mom's favorite tag team.
Mom's favorite tag team. Yeah. Yeah, we've had to tone them down a little bit. I allowed them to keep the mom's favorite tag team, but there was a few other things that I'm like, dude, we hey, Smash Mouth Wrestling and all, but we're still a family friendly product. So
right, I can imagine where that could go with that gimmick. So
they're gonna do very, very well. They're all like Josh Bain is a natural leader in the ring. And he knows how to stay calm and go out there. He understands wrestling. He understands how to put a match together. He's still learning, but he understands how to put a match together. Jimmy, I've compared Jimmy to Davey Boy Smith in the way that you get him in there with somebody who's a really, really good leader. Jimmy can do anything you ask him to do. He has got natural athletic ability. Confidence is sometimes an issue with him. He's the most humble guy you will ever meet. Incredibly humble, despite the fact that like he's a standout. He's been a standout from day one. But every once in a while, his humbleness gets in the way, and his confidence isn't there. But him and Josh Bain did a triple threat with Trent Seven. Okay, and I watched the match from the crowd, and I had tears of pride in my eyes watching it, because those two guys were freaking rock stars. They're in there with a world-class talent like Trent Seven, and I dare you to watch the match and tell me who's the world-class talent in the ring. And this is no shot at Trent, because right. Trent obviously, he really generaled that match, but everybody did their part. It was, they were amazing. Okay. And I often get told this, and Trent said this too. Trent was very impressed with the students, and couldn't believe that at that time, some of them had only been wrestling just over a year, and I get that everywhere I go. Yeah, they've wrestled, the Digglers wrestled TNT, and TNT at that point, I think one guy had only wrestled a year and the other guy just over a year, and they couldn't believe it. What? You only been wrestling a year? Yeah. No way. Yeah. Only been wrestling a year.
Well, does that come back? Does that come full steam back to you, though, and just the tutelage that you've been able to give them?
I think it does. I think it does. And how can it not? I mean, what's the common denominator, right? And again, I don't want to brag, but I mean,
you're doing something right, and you should be
I'm doing something
able to brag.
Right. I'm doing something right. Do I know everything there is about training? No, absolutely not. I'm still learning how to be an effective trainer. These are just things that I know. Like I taught everybody a certain way, and then Jimmy Garvin came in for a visit, and he said, "Why are you doing that?" And I said, "Jimmy, what the hell are you talking about? Everybody does that." He goes, "We didn't do that." Right? All right. Guess what? We're not doing that anymore. Yeah. Because I'm going to argue with Jimmy. And it's true. The thing he gave me real quick is everybody takes a back bump and they slap the mat. Right? That's how I was taught. Right. But let me ask you, how many times do you actually see people take a bump like that and slap the mat? You do, but those are the guys who just haven't stopped doing it because it looks fake as hell.
Right.
right? And I said, well, Jimmy, this is how I was taught. And, we teach them that way to get comfortable. It disperses the impact. It makes more noise, and it makes them more comfortable. Right. And then when they get more comfortable, they stop doing it. And he goes, well, then, so you train them one way, then you have to untrain them. So
Yeah.
what's the point of doing that? Why don't you just train them not to do it? I'm like, that makes sense. I don't do that anymore, because,
That
and
does make sense though, right? Like, yeah.
I mean, like, watch a match, and how many times do you see people take that bump? Every time. And I hate that. And it's like, and I'm a firm believer that your bump shouldn't look the same every time. Right? They shouldn't. People start picking up on it. Right? And when you start doing that, one of the biggest guys who would do that is Lex Luger. I called it the Lex Luger reacher. He would take every bump like that. Now you're going to go back and look at every Lex Luger match and go, there's one he didn't.
I'm going to be looking at it now when I watch some classic stuff, 100%.
But hey, like watch it. I mean, it's there. You'll see it, right? But then you'll see a lot of guys don't do it, or don't do it every time.
Right.
Right. And that's the thing. The lessons, people teach something and they're so black and white. Do it like this, right? But they don't give them the ability to think for themselves and go, there may be times where you don't need to do that or you shouldn't do that, but they're not explaining it that way, right? So you get these guys going out there and this is all they do. This is all they do every time, right? And I tell people, I'm a firm believer there's more than one way to do stuff. This is how I'm going to teach you, okay? But I do it like this, right? And I do it like this because this is why. I have a different way of doing a body slam, right? It still has all the fundamentals and all the basics, and it's still a safe way to do it. But this is how I do it because this is how I need to do it. This is, you got somebody a heck of a lot bigger, it has to do with adjusting the hand when you actually flip the guy over, right? You get a big, heavy dude up there who you can barely hold on to. Suddenly you're letting go of them to adjust the head, right? You might just lose your grip on them. So you don't have to do that. Do it this way, right? It's a different type of slam. But if you don't take the time to properly explain the difference, then people are only going to see something, and seeing it and mimicking what they see is only part of it. Understanding why they're doing it is the bigger component of learning for me. Why are you doing that? Right? I don't. And I use that in every facet, even like training on my shoot job. I'm not a big believer in push this button, then you do this, then you do this. No, I say we push this button because this button does this. And then we push this button because it does this. But in a different circumstance, you might have to do this because this is what the buttons do. So now you enable somebody to learn for them or think for themselves, right? Whereas I think there are a lot of people out there who are training that probably shouldn't be trainers.
Right.
And there are a lot of students out there that are bad students because they're not listening to the trainers who tell them the right stuff. I think I've got it's a good combination of good students, and I'm incredibly picky. I'm really, really picky, and I have no problem saying when something looks like shit, right? And I don't sugarcoat it. And I think because I'm picky that I get the types of performances I get out of my students, and it's working. I mean, it's
nothing
working.
wrong with being picky. There's nothing wrong with it, right?
No, I'm trying to protect the business. Like I'm trying to not make it look as fake as some people, say it is. The biggest compliment that I think you can get as a wrestler is, okay, I know that shit is fake, but I really think those two guys hate each other because they were beating the crap out of each other.
If you can suspend a crowd's belief for 5 seconds, you've done something right.
100%. And I think that we've done that multiple times. I think I'm still very good at that, at least with my selling. My work rate has dropped, obviously. I don't execute things as well.
I just thought of something funny.
What's that?
Your injury report and the man you were facing in the match, and he commented on the post saying, good, he deserved it. I was dying of laughter.
Oh, yeah.
Because that, to me, I know a little bit from understanding from talking with people who have been around forever and stuff like that. So to me, that's good heel work. Like, that's what you're doing. You're pushing up that because that's what people see.
Right.
Now, I'm sure he was like otherwise, and that's not for this conversation. But it was funny. And it was, to me, it was like, that's how you sell after.
Yeah. Yeah. No, exactly. Yeah. If because he Tomer and I have we've gone up and down the road a lot. We've had feuds and programs, and it's sort of a never-ending saga. And it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if I try and avoid having anything to do with him on shows. It's just a natural thing that happens. So yeah, that was very much an expected response from that guy. But yeah,
But as a fan of wrestling, it just popped you. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, sure. I'll see him down the road. I might be hanging up the boots next month, but it doesn't mean life is going to be easy for Toma. So,
with that being said, I want to graciously thank you for your time tonight.
Oh, hey, no problem.
I want you to go ahead for the next couple minutes, if you'd like, and promote the shit out of your company.
Okay. Well, hey, company's Northland Wrestling. I often, for the first little while, I always said it was the best kept secret in pro wrestling, but secret's out. Northland Wrestling, I think, is the best bang for your buck that you're going to get. If you want to make the drive up to North Bay, please join us August 26th for the Great Canadian Clash. It's the first one of its kind, the one under that name. We're bringing up Madman Fulton. We're bringing up Alan Angels. We've got some of Ontario's best there, and Jake O'Reilly and Scotty the Body and John Gonzalez, Carew, Matt Black. And we also have a bunch of awesome homegrown talent like Danny and Derek Diggler, Zandra Lee, keep an eye on her, Jimmy Spike, Josh Bain, Tommy McLeod, all homegrown people. In a short amount of time, those homegrown guys have become quite a staple of the main card. People love them. Come on up. I'm sure you'll love them too. Check us out, www.northlandwrestling.com. You can buy your tickets online there. You can find us on Facebook. And, get your tickets. 250 sold already. Third row VIP still available. Tickets are just $25 for VIP, 20 for general admission. Hit us up. We can hold tickets for you at the door. I think it's worth the drive to North Bay to check it out. And, Northland Wrestling. We rock. We hit harder in the north too. So
with that being said, this has been Spotlight with Shadow, and thank you again, Dan, and I look forward to seeing you soon.
All right, Shadow, man, it's been a blast. I really appreciate the opportunity.
Appreciate the interview, sir. Thank you.
All right, man. I hope to see you next month.
Hoping to get there.
All right, bud. Have a good one.
You too.